Chris Hipkins, Labour leader, with us as he is every week. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where are you today?
I am at home this morning, school holidays.
Ah, right. Everyone's home for school holidays, unless you have to work, I suppose. Hey, good to have you on the show.
Some of us do both, Ryan.
Well, are you working? Oh, I suppose you are working right now, aren't you? Do you think most MPs are taking time? I mean, do you kind of, when the school holidays are on, you're in recess, sort of spend time with the kids?
Oh, it's a little bit of both, I think, because MPs will work very long hours when they're in Wellington, and so yes, they will take a little bit of time, I hope, when they're back at home and Parliament's not sitting. But I know MPs work pretty hard as well, even when Parliament's not sitting. There's still a lot to do.
Email from Trevor this morning. Trevor writes to the show, Ryan, I would really like to know this, but no one seems to ask the Labour leader. Labour's strong on rehabilitation of criminals. Why do they ignore the protection of society and the punishment of criminals?
Well, I don't accept the assertion that that Trevor is making in that email. I think we want to keep the community much safer, which is that we want to focus on some of the underlying causes of criminal offending, so that we don't have as much criminal offending in the first place. But where people do, engage in criminal activity, where they do offend, yes, there should be punishment for that. But I think the problem is that at the moment, what we're seeing is a real focus on the punishment and not enough focus on the prevention. The government have talked, for example, about having 500 extra police on the streets. They haven't delivered on that. They're nowhere near to delivering on that. And yet they're asking the police to do more. If we want the police to do more, we've got to make sure we're giving them the resources so that they can do more.
When it comes to the prevention of crime and the root causes of crime, out of 10, what would you rate your party's success over 6 years?
Oh, it was very mixed. I'm not going to give it a number, but it was very mixed. But we did find some things that were working. So in the case of young offenders, for example, the circuit breaker initiative that we put in place, and we did it towards the end of our time in government, post-COVID, we put that circuit breaker initiative in place. And from memory, the numbers were very encouraging. About 75% of the young people involved in that didn't go on to reoffend. That still means that it didn't work for absolutely everyone. So we still had a group that we needed to do more with. But those are the sorts of things that I think the government should be focused on expanding, as well as making sure that the criminal justice system is working effectively. We've also got to make sure that we're working to do the things that we know work when it comes to preventing crime in the first place.
Were any of the crime stats better once you left office?
As I said, towards the end of our time in government, we had that post-COVID-19 spike in crime. We did do some new things, including the circuit breaker initiative. Those things were working. They were showing really positive signs of progress. And so we knew we had more work to do in that area.
So just to clarify, were any of them better?
Oh, I mean, if you look at overall victimisations in New Zealand, they've been trending down for several decades now. But post-COVID, as every other country did around the world, we saw an escalation in crime again, and that meant that the government had more work to do.
So COVID's fault. Are you worried you'll look like you're running from your problems, that you're not taking accountability? Because the same thing's happening with Rotorua and the housing situation. I saw a story this week, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that you said, obviously everyone went into the emergency accommodation, Rotorua went to the dogs, tourists didn't want to come, and you said we quote, got bad advice.
No, you are misquoting me there, Ryan. I was asked a specific question about the number of out-of-town people ending up in emergency accommodation in Rotorua, and we were told repeatedly that the emergency accommodation in Rotorua was not being used to house people from outside of Rotorua. And it's clear that there were people from outside of Rotorua being accommodated there. So that was the bad advice that I was referring to. I was not referring to the entirety of the emergency accommodation situation there.
Right.
I think there was more we needed to do to get people out of emergency accommodation, and we were building more houses there. I note for the people of Rotorua, one of the things that I'm sure will disappoint them is that many of the houses we were building in Rotorua have been cancelled by this current government. And as a result, where are they going to put people if not in emergency accommodation, if they're cancelling the building of new houses?
Yeah, but do you see what the problem is here? That you keep saying we were on the way to making things better, but all the things you mentioned were worse than when you started anyway.
Well, if you look at the number of new houses that we built almost a record number of new public houses, new social houses, new state houses, call them what you will, during our term in government. Now, if the national government before us had built that same number of, extra state houses at that same level, we wouldn't have a homelessness problem in New Zealand. So these are problems that have been decades in the making. They're not going to be solved immediately. The same thing is with crime. This government have been in office for a year and a half. They haven't solved the problems because there aren't instant quick fixes to them.
Yeah.
These are things that are going to take time to solve.
Okay. Well, Duncan Webb says that under the Sentencing Act changes that have been made, harsher penalties don't deter crime. Can you confirm Labor will never increase sentences or penalties for crime?
We're going to look at the bills that the government have put forward. We haven't formed a position on them. But what
So is Duncan wrong then?
So
when Duncan says harsher penalties don't deter crime, so just tell us you're not going to ever increase sentences for crime, because otherwise you...
Well, if you look at some of the issues that the government are dealing with, I agree they've identified legitimate issues that do need to be addressed. First responders being assaulted, for example, is not okay, and we need to do more about that.
But let's
look at what's driving some of that. So,
what do you mean what's driving? I mean, what specifically drives somebody to punch a paramedic in the face?
Well, I was just about to get to that, Ryan. If you look at the number of call-outs that paramedics are doing now for people who are in a high state of mental distress, that number is continuing to increase. Now, saying to someone, we're going to punish you more severely because of your actions that you take when you're severely mentally distressed, isn't going to change what that person is going to do. We've got to look at the fact that we've got far too many people ending up in a situation where they're highly mentally distressed, and our paramedics, our police, our frontline responders are the ones that are having to pick up the pieces of that.
Yeah, but they're the ones saying that they need more protection. I mean, do you accept, if somebody is nuts and punches paramedics in the face, if they are behind bars, they're not punching paramedics in the face, are they?
Well, somehow they... Do you really think that the solution to mental health is to lock up people with mental health problems?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is,
that's what you've asserted.
No.
What you just said, Ryan.
Hang on. What I'm asking you, are we at a point as a society where it doesn't matter anymore whether they're mad, bad or sad? If crime is at a point where paramedics are getting punched in the face at call-outs, then something has to be done about it, and it's not having paramedics continually punched in the face.
So if you look at it, so what have the government done here? If someone has willfully assaulted a paramedic, they can already be charged with assault. They can already be subject to the sort of sentences that the government are talking about in this legislation. What's the reason that they're not in many cases? It's because of the underlying mental health issues. Introducing a new category of offence, which they also won't end up being prosecuted for because of their state of mental distress, it's not going to change one thing for those frontline paramedics. We've got to focus on dealing with the problem. If we want those paramedics to be safer, then let's deal with the underlying thing that's making them not safe.
Appreciate your time this morning, Chris. So last time we came, it was your kitchen bench. This time it's your couch. I'm just nervous where we're going next in the household.
Oh no, I think we'll stick with the lounge. Thanks very much.